Hey y'all, I am the world-renowned historian. So there's a good chance that a lot of you believe a lot of really silly bullshit about history. Now a lot of that's not your fault. Some of it might be, but for the most part it's probably not. But we are here to correct such things. So it's time for a factoid. Now, it's a very famous story that the Roman Emperor Nero, during the city's Great Fire of the year 64, fiddled while Rome burned. Now, I would not be surprised if you believe this, but this did not happen. Indeed, could not have happened. For one thing, the fiddle was not invented until about 1400 years later, after Nero's death. So that's a big problem for this story. But even beyond the most obvious objection, we can and should dig a little deeper. For starters, there is very, very good evidence that Nero was very well liked by the common man, but despised by his wealthy and powerful peers. Those who would follow those wealthy and powerful peers are the exact people who wrote the records which we derive our picture of Nero from. It seems fairly probable that that record was fairly biased. Why did they hate him so much? Well, there are a lot of reasons. First, he liked building really big and extravagant, cool public buildings, and to do so, he taxed the hides off his fellow rich guys. Secondly, while he didn't play the sack of Ilium while the city burned, as historians Cassius Dio and Suetonius later alleged, he actually really did enjoy the performing arts. Acting, singing, composing. While entertainers in our time are very admired, back then they were in about the same social class as prostitutes. Thirdly, Nero was a member of a familial line called the Julio-Claudians, the first emperor of which was the very first emperor himself, Augustus. The last of which was our subject, Nero. Now, Augustus was highly revered by later emperors. Think like George Washington times Abraham Lincoln times Elon Musk in the United States. And in spite of his promises, it seems Nero didn't exactly govern according to Augustan norms. He said he would, but it doesn't seem like he really did. Finally, he absolutely was a fairly prolific prosecutor of Christians, which was not at all uncommon before the 3rd century. He was considered by Christian writers as alternatively either the Antichrist or quite literally a demon. So, basically, every single group who could tell Nero's story for posterity had reasons to hate Nero and tell his story in the absolute worst way possible. Everyone who had the ability to tell his story had motivation to make him look terrible. Everyone hated him, except apparently the Roman people. Even Tacitus, who was a child during Nero's reign and was writing very negatively of him just a few decades later, admits that the common people were upset that he was gone. Multiple false Neros sprang up in the years immediately after his death. Why would that have happened had that not been a possible way to gain followers? Because he was actually very popular among the people. 50 years after his death, the Greek orator Dio of Prusa gives us, even now, everyone wants Nero to be alive. And most people believe that he is. So the common folk liked him, and everybody else hated him. This is not to defend Nero, who certainly committed his share of crimes and blunders, but he wasn't even in Rome when the fire started. He was at his villa in Antium. Now, there is actually some mystery as to whether Nero himself intentionally started the fire. The only ancient source that doesn't outright blame him is oddly the one closest to his own lifetime, Tacitus. Tacitus says, some say yes, some say no. While all the others say no, Nero definitely did it. There are a multitude of reasons he might have done so. Some said that he hated the city's ancient construction and wanted to rebuild. Some said that he wanted to make room for his enormous palace, the Domus Aurea, the Golden House. Now, we can't know for sure if Nero actually did have the fire started intentionally. Couldn't have been him personally, but had proxies go and do it for him. But he did return to Rome to initiate a massive welfare and relief program for the people affected. So the people who were affected by the fire, he made sure they were fed and taken care of. Does that sound like somebody who intentionally had the fire set? I don't know. That doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Of course, he did blame the Christians and had many tortured and put to death. So before watching this video, if I'd asked you if Nero had fiddled when Rome had burned, probably a substantial portion of you would have said yes. Now, at least I hope you know that you can't play an instrument that doesn't exist in a city that you're not physically, geographically in. Alright kids, this has been the world-renowned historian for Factoids. Be good. Out.